So describe what the Weimar Republic was. So indicate Streseman's plan to help Germany after World War One. So within your response, include the Dawes and Young Plan and the Kellogg-Briand Act. There you go. So we talked about these terms yesterday. We mentioned about Gustav, how he's going to try to help Germany when it comes to following the Treaty of Versailles, these treaty negotiations, and rebuilding.
Wait, since Connor got
No class.
to the month, can he change his seat if he wants?
No.
That's
Oh, I did say that, didn't I?
yeah.
Connor, do you need to change your seat or are you going to stay there?
Mark's near everyone.
I can overrule it. Remember this.
I don't need honors.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Nice. Awesome. Hey, bell ringer, quiet. Thank you. Bless you. Bless you. Bless you. Bless you. Spanish influenza, look out. Could be that too. Uh, all right, okay, so we talked about the Kaiser, monarch of Germany during World War One. What was his name again? What was his name? His dad was crowned at the Palace of Versailles after the Franco-Prussian War. What's this guy's name? Go ahead, Wyatt. Yeah, good job. So you got Wilhelm II of Germany. Do you think they're going to leave him around as monarch, as Kaiser of Germany, of the empire? No, they're not. So the Allied powers say, yeah, you're going to have to form a new government. And that new government is the Weimar Republic. So what is the Weimar Republic? What type of government is it? It says it kind of in its name here. Fine. Yeah, right. It's a democratic republic, right? So it is a representative government for the people, elected. These representatives are going to be elected by the people, a lot like the United States when it comes to our representatives that shape our legislation, our legislative body. All right, so with that, okay, with the Weimar Republic, this is going to try to bring structure, stability back to Germany after World War One. Okay, a lot of these representatives are going to follow along with the Treaty of Versailles. So that's something to note as we move closer to the rise of dictators. A lot of these extremists are saying, hey, I can't believe our representative officials, all right, our legislators here are actually just following along with this Treaty of Versailles. This is unbelievable, right? They're burdening us. They're humiliating us. And the Allied powers, and we're going along with it. Unbelievable. But at first here, right, there was a lot of issues when it came to Germany. Obviously, they're war torn. They're destroyed, right? Their infrastructure, their industries, their factories are all destroyed from the war. So they need help, right? They need some sort of assistance. And how's that going to happen? How's that going to happen? What was that plan we talked about? It says, what was this plan to help rebuild Germany after World War One? Go ahead, Parker. Yeah, the Dawes and Young plan. Yep, good job. So Stressman, he is a part of this leadership here when it comes to the Weimar Republic to try to bring structure back to Germany, to make it more recognizable and respected at the international level. So maybe at some point they can join the League of Nations. Who knows, right? We all know they do. But in any case, this was Stressman's goal. All right, so the goal was to try to curb off some of this inflation and to back the mark, the dollar of Germany by the gold standard. Right? If there's a backing to it, then this could maybe stop some of this inflationary process here, this cycle that Germany's going through right after the war. And it works out pretty well for Germany, through the 1920s. And the reason for it is because their foundation is supported by who? Who's giving them a lot of the money here? Yeah, the United States, right? So we talked about how the United States was really that only industrial power left after World War One. Yeah, there's no fighting done on Great Britain, but they lost a generation of men that would fill the factories, the industries. Okay, so here, right, with the Weimar Republic and with the Dawes and Young plan, they are relying, they're dependent on the United States for rebuilding their infrastructure, rebuilding their industries or factories, and then also paying the Allies what? What do they have to pay the Allies? What is that term again? What is that term? Chris? Yeah. Yeah, good job. So reparations, good. So with the Dawes and Young plan, it starts with the United States. Okay. So they're loaning money to Germany, right? So they're loaning a lot of money, let's say $2.5 billion. And what's Germany going to do with that money? They're going to do what part? Rebuild, right? They're going to be rebuilding their bridges, their roads, their factories, their industries. And then eventually, not going to happen overnight, take some time. Once they start to produce some capital here, some profits, then they can utilize that then to pay who? Chris, you said it, the Allied powers get reparations, right? So then they can follow along those lines of the Treaty of Versailles. And if they continue down that path, they might be recognized at the League of Nations. This is the whole goal. It does work out, right? So yeah, with Germany, they're rebuilding. And with that money from the United States, obviously, they can use that to rebuild. And once they make some profit, they're going to send that money to the Allied powers through reparations. All right, the Allied powers with that money then that they're getting from Germany with the reparations, what are they gonna do? They're gonna do pretty much the same thing, right? They have to rebuild, especially France, from this war. Okay, they're destroyed from this conflict. So once they rebuild their roads, their bridges, their industries, their factories that were torn apart from World War I, they then can pay coup finally, right, for all the loans and all the military supplies and equipment throughout this war. Connor? Yeah, the United States. So it kind of works like a triangle, right? Yesterday I showed you that image and how that works out. Okay, for the time, right? And it was stressing me here, things started to look pretty good for the Weimar Republic. All right, the standard of living of all German people rose. People had more money in their pockets, right? And at the same time, they're following the restrictions of the Treaty of Versailles. Right? Extremist groups did not like this. So we'll talk today, and when we get close to World War II, there are a lot of pushes, movements by the Nazi Party, the German Socialist Workers' Party, led by Hitler, that tried to actually overthrow the Weimar Republic. And this places them in jail. Oh boy. So Hitler's in jail for a time period during the start of the Weimar Republic. Okay, because he just couldn't believe they're following the Treaty of Versailles. All right, so later down the road here, mid-1920s, late 1920s, finally Germany's recognized by the Allied powers to join the League of Nations, right? Yes, okay. And with the Kellogg-Briand Act, this is allowing Germany to have a seat at the table. And finally having negotiations with the Allied powers to be recognized, to be respected. And things start to look pretty good, right? Yeah, okay. And all of a sudden, what happens? The Stresemann lived forever? No. He dies. It's weird. It's only a couple of weeks before what crashes in the United States. What crashes? Go ahead. Yeah, good job. The stock market crash. And we see the Great Depression in the U.S. Does it only stay in the United States, though? This Great Depression? Connor, no. Why not?
Because a lot of Americans' currency was circulating around because of how much the money they're spending into it.
Yeah, good job, right? So with that Dawes and Young plan especially, here we are funding a lot of the rebuilding projects. We're also establishing business partners over in Europe. This is great, right? This is helping us when it comes to our trade, when it comes to capitalism. And another effect here of the Dawes plan is to try to prevent what from spreading to Europe, Western Europe. Paul? Yes, you would say that, wouldn't you? Red shirt today. Keep an eye on that guy. Yes, okay. So anyway, with the Dawes plan, that was another second, I guess you could say, objective of it, which worked out. But yeah, once the stock market crashes in the United States, and we see a lot of this production just continue to roll, what happens if you have an oversupply of a product? What happens to the price? Parker. It drops, right? To a point where you're not making any money off these products or these goods. What happens? Can you stay open? No. These businesses start to shut down. People are out of jobs. Your investments in these businesses, well, your stocks, they plummet. And this is where people just try to sell their stocks all at once to get rid of them because they know it's not going to be worth much of anything if these businesses are shut down. So with the Dawes and Young plan, you're taking out the United States. Now Germany has no way of rebuilding. Right? The Allied powers have no way of rebuilding after the reparations are cut out. So everything just kind of falls apart. Also, the United States, you think they're receiving a lot of money back from the Allied powers? Not really, right? Again, this plan takes a lot of time. It's not going to happen, like I say, overnight. Okay, but for a short stint, it worked out pretty well. Okay, but anyway, in any case here, with Germany, we're going to go through a lot of problems we'll talk about today with hyperinflation, the fall of the Weimar Republic, and really leading into these extremist groups to take control. Why? Because there's a huge depression. Once there's instability, once these systems start to fail, well, people look to promising leaders, maybe, right? Ones that are promising them a lot. That lead to a lot of hardships. Okay, all right, so here you go. You got the Great Depression, Paul von Hindenburg, whoa, what a name. And then you got hyperinflation. What's up? This is it. This is the last of the terms. Not bad, right? So we're going to have the test on Tuesday. So tomorrow, we're going to review this. We're going to talk about that. Have a study guide for you. Okay. And then Monday, we'll have a review. Tuesday, test. Sound good? Great. So this is gonna push us right into the start of World War II, with rising dictators. That was the goal. That's why World War One kind of lasts a little bit longer than the war itself, but there's a lot of effects that lead to the Second World War. And we're getting there. We're getting there. Bless you. All right, okay. So we just talked about the stock market crash here, okay, in 1929, end of October, causing a lot of hardships here, not only for the United States, but the rest of the world. And actually, Germany goes through a harder depression than anyone else. Why? Because they're dependent on the United States. All these European countries really are when it comes to rebuilding, right? So this caused a lot of problems to a point where this is going to lead these countries in Europe to accept dictators, people that have extreme values, that are going to try to bring back what was that term that starts with an N, national pride, to bring it back to their countries. What is that called again? Alana, you got it? Nationalism, yes, good job. So this is going to inspire nationalism once again to be heightened, to rise as a cause to World War II. All right, so we're going to look at these extreme nationalist groups, right, and look how they're going to try to achieve power, which they do obviously because of these hardships of the Depression. All right, before we get there though, Paul von Hindenburg, what do we know about this guy? Anybody? Wyatt, go ahead.
He's a German marshal during the Great War, and then he became president of his death.
Yeah, good job, right?
He's
So,
responsible for making Hitler change.
whoa. Calm down here. Yeah, so with Paul von Hindenburg, he was a respected German general during World War One, right? So he was respected, he was famed, and the people of Germany loved him, right? So he was chosen to be the Weimar Republic's president. He was voted in. And this was a way to try to bring back structure, stability to Germany, right, as they're going through these harsh times after World War One. Again, what better person than, let's say, a famous, popular general, right? So Hindenburg, through these tough times of this depression, right, through these tough times of what we're going to talk about, this hyperinflation, try to keep Germany together. But sooner or later, right, in his old age, right, he's going to see a lot of the effects here, which is going to lead to his death. And this is going to bring on these extremist views and a person like Hitler to rise to power. Yes, Hindenburg appointed Hitler as chancellor. And the reason for it is because the Nazi party was gaining a lot of momentum. They were gaining a lot of popularity because they were promising the people so much to bring Germany back to becoming a world power, to forget about the Treaty of Versailles, to forget about the hardships of the Depression and provide jobs, a stronger military back to Germany. And the German people were like, yeah, this is great, right? We want that again. Because, well, again, they're facing the hardships of a depression. All right, so with Paul von Hindenburg, he is really this last president here of the Weimar Republic that is going to see the downfall, right? Once he dies, once he kind of is no longer with the Weimar Republic, we see Hitler rise to power. Through his enabling acts, then Hitler will become the Fuhrer, the dictator, the leader of Germany. All right, so we'll mention that here. Hyperinflation, what do we got? Go ahead, Chris. Yes, good, good. So when you think about inflation, right, you think about, oh, what's going on in the United States right now when it comes to the prices of goods, materials, they're all up, right? The worth of the dollar just kind of goes down because there's a lot of money out in circulation. But with hyperinflation, well, they just continue to print money out just for the hell of it, to a point where that worth of that dollar just became so low. It was to a point where the German people were actually utilizing it as wallpaper in their homes. It's like, oh, we have so much money. This is great. Well, it's worth nothing. So, I mean, it's cheaper than actually going down the street and buying wallpaper. So let's just put it on the walls of our houses. Let's, I don't know, use it as fuel for our fires. It just takes too long to go out and chop some wood. So just throw a bunch of those lumps of money in there to start the fire. What do you think? Yeah, sure, it's worthless. So why not? They give it to kids to play around with. I'll show you a picture. There's a bunch of kids using money and making a kite out of it. It's like, what? This is crazy. It looks like they're really rich, but it's not the case at all. All right. So with that, this depression hits in the United States. Again, with that oversupply, these industries, these factories pumping out supplies and goods to a point where the prices drop so low, they're going to have to do something. That's where you see these businesses, these industries shutting down. Also with agriculture, right? Think about that. In World War I, the United States was ramping up its agricultural production, trying to feed soldiers, right, overseas. Did the government ever step in and say, hey, let's calm down here? We have an oversupply in the marketplace. No. So that also took a toll. Not only in the industries, but also with agriculture, as government was really staying out of it, which, yeah, for capitalism, that's good, but there needs to be a means of setting when it comes to supply, demand, and pricing, right? It's going to be affected by the consumer. All right, so with the depression hitting, right, you'll talk more about it with American history too, how people suffer, how people go through a lot of hardships, a lot of hard times, right? Uber bills start to pop up all throughout the United States, and people are joining in the bread lines just for some sort of food. But there's really no substance to it because, well, again, they're limited on what type of products they can actually afford to buy. So as this depression hits hard in the United States, it is even worse in Europe. It's even worse for Germany because they're dependent on the United States when it comes to their funding, and when it comes to their economic policies and processes. So yeah, with the Dawes and Young plan, it was great at the start, right? It worked out pretty well, looking into the early 1920s and mid 1920s. But eventually, once the United States was receiving their money, right, receiving the funds that they deserved from the Allied powers for supporting them through World War I, and no one stopped the production, well, eventually these industries and factories start to shut down because they have such an oversupply, a saturated market, and it caused a lot of hardships. All right, so with that, right, as this funding just stopped coming from the United States, Germany, the Weimar Republic, thought, well, how are we going to try to stop this depression? How are we going to try to provide more for our people? let's just print out more money. If 400 people have money, they can go out and utilize that out in the marketplace. They can use it, spend, to buy products that we just went before. And before, let's say that regulation hits to determine how much this dollar is actually worth comparable to the U.S. dollar. Let's just hope and pray they buy enough that night before it gets set to another, let's say, dollar worth. So that's surprising to know. And it came to a point where the German people, well, they got all this money here because it's printed out like wildfire, and it's worth nothing. To go get a loaf of bread, you have a person literally walking down the street. You can see that picture up there, walking with a wheelbarrow full of money just because he needs to get, let's say, a loaf of bread, a carton of eggs, you name it. Right? So it just goes to show how much, right, this worth of the dollar just plummeted. Okay, and to just go to the grocery store, they have to bring a lot of money like that to just buy these good products. Can you imagine the cashier there? Gosh, you got to count all this. It came to a point where it was that worthless that even kids were given these lumps of money to play with. Look at that. It looks like Legos, Lincoln Logs, right? These building blocks. No, that's just a chunk of money that's worthless, right? Rather than going out and buying these toys, they just gave them the money they utilized to play with. Because, again, it's worthless, right? It's worthless, really. Oh, there's kids, too, playing with a kite. It's like, hey, cut up the money and, I don't know, make a kite out. What about the newspaper? No, actually, the money's a lot worthless than that newspaper, right? You need a lot more of that money here to even buy a newspaper. So just put up the money and use that newspaper. Again, it looks like they're loaded, looks like they're rich, but the worth of that dollar is nothing really. So these people, again, do hyperinflation. So there's a woman down there. All right, let's heat the home. Go out and cut up some sticks right here, cut up a log, throw it in the fire. Now it takes too much time. What about we just throw this money in here to start it up? Right? Yeah, sure. It's worthless, so why not? All right, so through these tough times of hyperinflation, here's just another look at what this is. Worth of this. There you go. So you can see kind of the worth of that dollar. And like I said, when it gets to 1930, it's even worse with hyperinflation. Okay. So as you see, 1914, mark compared to the US dollar, it's about 4.2. Not bad, right? Not bad. But when you get to 1923, right, that is just a ridiculous amount of money just compared to the $1 US. So again, showing how hyperinflation is just brutal. And again, this is in 1923. We talked about the Dawes plan, actually how it alleviates some of these pressures. We get to 1930, it's way worse than this, right? Way worse. Right, so through these tough times of depression and hyperinflation, do you think people respected the Weimar Republic anymore? No. They're going through a lot of hardships. They're going through a lot of problems. Their money is worthless, right? Literally. And it came to a point where eventually the people started looking at these moderate political officials saying, well, they're not helping us. They're causing more problems for us. Why not, let's say, look at this other political official, maybe look at this other party that's promising jobs, promising a stronger military, promising a better life for us, the German people, to bring back the Aryan culture, right? Okay, and that's where a lot of people accept the Nazi Party as their political ideology, following Hitler as he was speaking out and providing somewhat of stability and structure for the people after this depression. So we'll mention Hitler's rise to power to start off with Chip. But you can see as this downfall after World War I, this huge depression hits. Well, it pushes people to forget about this Weimar Republic, forget about this representative democracy, and accept these extremist values, right? Accept Hitler maybe to lead them through these difficult times. Again, it's not just happening in Germany; it's happening in other countries. We'll talk about with Italy and Mussolini. We'll mention with Stalin, different scenario, right? Obviously, he just kind of pops in as the premier, and it's just kind of goes from there. But with Hitler gaining the support of the people through these tough times of a depression. All right, is there any questions here? Any questions? No? You good? All right, so you can see the problems emerging that's going to lead to this Second World War, and how Hitler is going to look at the Treaty of Versailles and the Allied powers and say, we need to get back at them, right? We're going to build up our military. We're going to look to take back over here.